When you are ready, then we will start. Okay. A very good evening to you, friends. We are delighted to host this discussion on this very interesting book on the Parsi community written by my esteemed friend and a one-time colleague, Kumi Kapoor. And we are grateful to Sharnaz Kama, Dr. Sharnaz Kama and Kirsi Debu for agreeing to take part in this discussion. What we are going to do is we're going to cut out the introduction by one of our colleagues, but may I invite Kumi, Sharnaz, and Kirsi to introduce themselves briefly. Then Kumi will make a brief statement about the book, how she came to write. This is a paperback edition. The hardbound edition did so well, that's why they came up with the paperback edition. And so then we will throw the discussion open for questions and answers. Whoever has a question to ask, kindly raise your hand and wait for a microphone to come to you. Then identify yourself and ask the question. May I now invite Kumi to talk.
I'm a Delhi-based journalist, and term usually used as veteran since I've been so long in the profession that people ask me still haven't retired. I am a Parsi also, and I was asked by the publishers to write a book on the Parsis, so that's how it came about. About the book itself, I just wanted to say you'll be wondering why, when it was released in 2021, it's some people are under the impression that it's just come out. It's being released. Actually, what's happened is that 2021 was during the COVID time, and we didn't have any function as such. And after later on, uh, when when it was sold out and it went into paperback with another publisher, before that I have this is a new edition. Actually, it's got extensive I got a lot of feedback from the first edition and I incorporated it into the book, which includes first and foremost a huge vacuum that I had left out, not going into detail about Parsi's involvement in the pioneering days in cricket, cinema, and in plays, modern Indian plays. So there's that chapter has been included in the business section. As you can imagine, much update had to be done because many events have changed, and tragically, one of the main characters, Mr. Cyrus Mistry, has also passed away. Apart from that, I took the suggestions of readers, and there are a lot of photographs in this one, and also genealogies, charts of the two prominent families, because people said, non-Parsi said we are totally confused who's related to whom. But all Parsis are related to each other in one way or another. So I'll pass it on to Mr. Debu. He's the deputy chairperson of the Minorities Commission.
Use the microphone, please. Press the red button, it becomes green. Kirsi.
Few years back, Kumi had come to Navsari, my native place. She was finding her roots. Her parents and mother side forefathers were from Navsari. Mother side, Divecha. Surname is Divecha, and his father's side is Kapadia.
Mother's side is Dastu.
Dastu.
Maternal
Yeah.
side
Yeah.
is Divecha.
His father is Kapadia. Yeah. So she was in search of her root, but unfortunately, she could not find in Navsari, particularly. For writing this book, she has traveled so many places in India where Parsis are staying and taken interviews of all the leaders and dignitaries of Parsi community. She had come to my office last year and taken my small interview. At that time, I was not aware that she is taking my interview. I was just talking and she was writing whatsoever it. And she may have written it in her book. Going through her book, Kumi herself is a well-known journalist and columnist, and overall she is a Parsi, has taken much labor to collect data and first-hand information. The book written so easy that you can read it like a novel. Interest never break when reading. It is written in very simple language and one can understand very easily. And flowing is so smoothly that one can read at one effort. So interest is also continuously flowing. To collect data, she has referred many books, traveled widely, and taken interviews of many dignitaries and persons connected with the topic. Some of the stories are well known, some little known, and some unknown. She has furnished all the information she received, and some is very well known. And the conflict between Mistri and Tatas is written so well that as if some uh, cinema script is going on. You can find it like the cinema is going. So very well written. The conflict between the two personalities. Half of the pages in this book covers Tata Mistri conflicts. A history of both the industrialists discussed well in depth. Their relations over 100 years remain sweet and sour. She has covered whole history. For Parsis, it is saying that Parsis are in a group. They are quarreling in between each other. When they are only two, they will fight with each other. And if he is alone, what he is doing, he will stand against mirror and fight against himself. This is said. So she has described Tatas and Mistris uh, fight just like that only. Uh, then she has covered history of Wadia family right from Lauji Wadia to Nasli Wadia and Jay Wadia. Wadia are originally from Surat and they have migrated to Mumbai for shipbuilding. They were originally shipbuilders, and the history of building uh, ships is very deep, and she has described it in very good manner. And ancestors and ancestors of their families are still exist, and Nasli and Jay is one of them. So she has described Nasli Wadia, a friend, philosopher, and guide for Tatas on various stages, which is not much known before. Nasli and Ratan were intimate friends, but the friendship ends when Nasli favored Cyrus Mistry in boardroom. So, uh, some nature of Ratan Tata is difficult to understand. His ego is very much high, and she has described it in book in very deep. She has entered into lifestyle of Parsi Sethias and dignitaries also. It was very common for Parsi Sethias to keep mistress, and one of the dignitaries was a homosexual. She has already disclosed. So she has disclosed a very interesting position. There is a little space for freedom fighters like Dadabhai Nauroji, Madam Kama, Mithuben Petit, Dinsa Vacha, Khurshid Nariman. She has mentioned lawyers like Nani Palkhiwala, Sori Sorabji, Fali Nariman, Homi Sirvai, Kal Khandanawala, etc. She has covered Parsi merchants like Jamshedji Jijibai and Sir Kawasji Jangir and their contribution, their philanthropy and charities, their foresight and public obligations also. For Parsis, uh, nobody knows the exact number of Parsis, but according to last census, it is about 57,000 in India and maybe about 20,000 migrated to USA, Canada, Australia, Gulf and other countries. There are about 2,000 remains in Pakistan. Out of 1 lakh Zoroastrian of Iran, 80,000 fled away to various countries. There are Zoroastrian population in Tajikistan and Azerbaijan, Iraq, etc. So she has described all these things in her book very deeply, very good. And for new generation, she may, I have not referred this new book, but she must have included the last generation who are active at present. In last 50, 60 years, new Parsi industrialists come up like Serum Institute of India, Dr. Cyrus Poonawalla, Adar Poonawalla, world largest manufacturer of vaccines. Rasna product, Bioma Industries, late Mr. Aris Khambata, world's largest soft drink concentrate manufacturer. They have verified in other food products also, and products exported to 60 countries. Cobra beer, Lord Karan Moria, he is very famous in UK. Villu Morawala Patel, bioscientist, chairperson of Avastajan, Bangalore, is a biological industry. Renowned architect like Hafiz Contractor, Supreme Court judge like Jamshed Pardiwala, Lieutenant General Zubin Minwala. Before a month, he was escalated to Major General. Major General retired Cyrus Pitawala, awarded highest military award, Ashok Chakra, for his bravery, is leading Republic Day parade since last many years. Other dignitaries are Jimmy Mistry, a furniture maker and a hotel in hotel business. Jal Shroff of Fossil, he is one of the leading watchmakers in world. Awari Hotels of Pakistan, is the hotels in various Gulf countries. So the new generation of Parsi is also equally entrepreneurs and well in center of attraction. So this is the Parsi smallest community in India. Still we are struggling for increasing, but unfortunately we are decreasing. So we are doing our best job to, but in certain senses, the orthodox and reformists, the two streams are in our community. Orthodox fixed in certain old circumstances, right rules and everything, and reformists are against that. The question is bias, sexual bias. So sons and daughters of of Parsi male who married outside Parsi can be called Parsi or Zoroastrian. But for the girls who are marrying outside Parsi communities and their children are not allowed. Uh, when I was talking with her, uh, she said, how are you so positive in increasing Parsi population? I told her that sooner or later, the, the children of Parsi girls married outside will be accepted. And the two cases are there in Supreme Court. And it is on in final stage. And I think Justice Chandrachud is very uh, uh, positive about the sexual bias and everything. So I am so hopeful that sooner or later the children of Parsi girls married outside will be also included. This way, and in other countries, the conversation is allowed. In India, the Parsis conversation is not allowed. But in other countries where Parsis are there, in USA, in Canada, in Australia, and others, they are converting others in fold also. So this is outline. I passes it on Senas. Now,
Thank you so much, Mr. Venkat Narayan, for inviting me, and Kumi. Thank you, Mr. Debu, for summing up the book. Uh, I am actually very grateful to Kumi. Our families go back a long, long way. I was telling her how much she reminds me of her mother. So I am that generation, okay? And her mother was a gorgeous person. So I'm delighted to see three more generations over here. I've just met Ila and her little girl. So it was a delight. Uh, I think why I'm so grateful, Kumi, is that Pilu Nanavati did a phenomenally seminal work called The Parsis about 50 years ago. And that book, simple little National Book Trust publication, has been actually a key book for any researcher who wants to get details on the Parsis for the smallest date and detail. Pilu Auntie had done a magnificent job. She died at 101, 102, in fact, after celebrating her birthday with us in the Delhi Parsi Anjuman. Sorry, I haven't introduced myself. I'm Shahnaz Kama. I teach at Delhi University at Lady Shri Ram College, and I also run Parzor, which was started by UNESCO requesting me to start this program. Uh, the reason why I am grateful to Kumi is that she has brought the Parsis, especially with her title, and I think it's a very good title. Uh, no, I think the Freddie Mercury today. I have been phoned from England and told you're coming, so you have to buy books. I've been buying books and making her sign because I think the word Freddie Mercury has caught the eyes of a new generation and the ears of a new generation. I think that is very, very important. As Mr. Debu said, it's a delightful read. It is very, very easy to go through this book. And I think it is a very important reminder that we still exist. When a few, almost 1,000 years ago, people thought that we had died out, it required a lot of research because in Iran we were completely oppressed. In India, we were very much under the radar. So at that time, historians had really thought that we had died out. I think sadly we are reaching that stage. And Kumi, thank you for making the world aware that we are still around, though we are, of course, diminishing at 10% every 10 years. Now, the thing which I am going to quarrel with you about is your preface. Your preface should have been or should be now your next book, because you are a descendant of Dastur Jama Sasa, who goes back in line, in lineage, what we call in Parsi Gujarati the Vanshavali. Vanshavali means your family tree. You are a descendant of the Jamasasa family, and on the other side of the Dasturs of the Deccan, which unfortunately has died out, that whole family. So I think the amount of research you can do there, going back 3,000 years to the Prophet himself, because Jamasasa was part of the Prophet's very close group when he taught in Bronze Age Iran, when Iran, Azerbaijan, Central Asia, whichever, I mean, we're all arguing about it all the time. I think that Dastur Jama Sasa is of the same lineage. He's a brilliant oncologist and surgeon in England, but he travels every month to attend special prayers in Bombay. Yes, he does. He does. He's a very interesting young man. I mean, he's only 50, so he's young. So he's an interesting young man. So I want to, I'm going to ask you some questions which I don't want you to answer right now because I've got a little thing which I want to the audience. I want to ask you how, and I asked you this when we were talking with Dadi. Are you turning to your heritage at the age which you are now? Have you always been interested? And I think this is a book, it's a labor of love in many ways. So I am very intrigued by that because I think what my UNESCO work has taught me is that when we started it 25 years ago, UNESCO requested me to start the Parzor project. Parzor is Parsi Zoroastrian project in India, and now it's of course across Iran and the world. Because today the preservation of identity and culture in an increasingly monocultural modern world is the biggest problem. And UNESCO, of course, is only a catalyst. It's a big catalyst, but it's a catalyst. So it points out when it sees a community about to lose identity, which also means language, which means stories, which means oral traditions, which means everything. So have you come back to it? Is your memory reminding you of the monajats you sang and things of that sort in Ahmedabad?
It's that, you know, it was really being a Parsi was at the back of my mind. It wasn't at the forefront. And when the publisher suggested I write the book, it was a whole journey of discovery because, I mean, I was always proud of my being a Parsi and of my roots, but I hadn't given too much thought, you know, about it. And I was, after researching for the book, I was so much more proud. And what I wanted to bring out in the book was that we are a very unique community, but unfortunately, very often when the Parsis are written about, and I was just given a blanket that write a book on the Parsis. So, I mean, I kept thinking, what do I write? I can't write an encyclopedia. I can't write a who's who, which is the normal thing on Parsis and what they've attained and this and that. It has to be readable and a friendly sort of uh, story. So, actually, when I was told about it in 2016, I was scratching my head when this famous fight between Mr. Tata and Mr. Mistry took place. And I thought that was a good peg to start the book about because it's not just for, I never wanted the book to be just for Parsis. I wanted it to be a book for all Indians to know about the community, which is very different. And I didn't want it to be a hagiography, and that often ends up, you know, that they're painted. I think it's much better to bring it out realistically what people are, you know, what's and all, because that's everybody is human. So a lot of people, in fact, have misunderstood that because perhaps their true common criticism of the book is that too much time has been spent in the business community. But I thought that would attract non-Parsis to read the book. because A, it was topical, the fight, and B, also it is India's largest business house. And thirdly, though I'm a political journalist and not a business journalist, I could make out after interviewing people, maybe I was lucky because I was a Parsi and they spoke to me, that a lot was not known that I could bring out also.
Uh, I think, yes, what you said is absolutely right. We are known for our business acumen in India. But I also would like to talk to this audience, especially because it is largely a non Parsi audience. Of course, when we appear, we do appear in good numbers. But please remember that this is almost three-quarters of the Delhi Parsi population in this one room. Uh, I think what is important for me and what I would like to explain, because this book, even though you say it's not a hagiography, I mean, anything about the Parsis, we do things by extremes, and we do manage quite a lot, even though we're tottering around or whatever we're doing. I think I would like to go back to two or three points about this. One is that what Zarathustra taught, Prophet Zarathustra, who's hardly known and who nobody knows how to spell. So the Greeks turned it to Zoroaster, so it's very easy for everyone. I think what is so interesting for me, as somebody who's worked in this field for 50 years of my life, is that what Zarathustra taught is so important today. And the first point is, I think, the environmental consciousness of our faith. When in the Gathas, which is all we have left of Zarathustra, because it's an oral tradition, it was destroyed over many, many different defeats in Iran. Uh, what he taught was care for creation and that reverence for creation, which we have absorbed, I think, by osmosis, that you don't pluck a flower when it's sleeping at night, you pick up your feet when you walk, you don't pollute water, you don't pollute fire. I think all these things are what young children, and I'm glad to see there's one young child here today. This is something which everybody talks about today in EVS classes and environment classes and things of that sort. So I think the important things, and it's not just in India. I mean, one of the people you've autographed the book for is Lord Karan Moria in England. Now, the things like this is, it again goes back to our religious roots. And I think also, obviously, religion and culture overlap over here. And that is because when we tie the kasti every day, the sacred thread which both girls and boys wear. Of course, the religion is completely gender equal, and I'm stressing that because, of course, the race part is different in India, particularly. I think that when we tie the knot at the word Shothenana, and we wear a little pocket, and I've got it on under this, my sadra, the shudre, the garment of the good road. You can understand it from Sanskrit. We're supposed to fill that pocket with one good deed at least every day to man or any other part of creation. And we tie the knot of our code, sacred code, at the word Shoti Nam, which means to act. Ours is a religion of action. And I think that is very, very important for all of us to realize, because it needs to be emphasized that it doesn't come out of a vacuum. It's something that is in our blood training, whatever you want to call it. But while you talk about all this, the other very important thing, especially as a teacher, when I've seen post COVID what our students have gone through and the mental stresses and the problems that both teachers and students are facing, and of course the whole world is facing, uh, what we need and what this religion does actually teach, and I'm then going to move to history very briefly, is that it is about joy, joy in creation. Happiness comes to him who gives happiness. I think that is something which is so important today, especially in a post-COVID world when everything seems doom and gloom and all that. I'm not trying to lighten anything. We've all been through hell and come back. But I think that is another very positive force.
Yes,
So-
as you said, Zoroastrianism, I mean, it's the oldest monistic religion
Yes.
in the world before Christianity, Islam, Judaism.
Yes.
But in some ways, it is far more progressive
Exactly. It's
than any of
amazingly
them.
progressive.
Because there's no talk about celibacy or any of these things that are in later religions. And we believe there's one God.
Yes.
It's true, the Christians try to make out that we were nature worshippers, but as you pointed out, because first we respected and believed in nature, which
Yes.
is what now the world has come
Exactly.
to do.
Finally.
But it was just that the Christian missionaries were trying to put us down, basically.
I don't want to go there, but
But basically, I mean, and that we are fire worship.
Yeah, fire worshippers,
Because
yes.
that is the common story about Zoroastrianism. That's fire worship. And what we were taught was that we just look, or we rather than idol worship, we would rather, if we have to have any representation of God, better to come from nature, which He
yes,
created.
and we have to remember that in around the Azerbaijan area, and of course in the area which we believe is Zoroaster's own homeland, which is right now in Afghanistan, there've been a lot of archaeological digs, and the most beautiful way in which the fire was kept, it was never enclosed. It was always on top of mountains near a stream. And that, I think, some of the old travelers have actually drawn sketches of this. And it is such a beautiful feeling because that's what we all need. And we all go off for retreats and we do this and we do that. But it is in a faith. So that is one thing. And the other thing where I think which is also very important to realize and differentiate between the what has happened now is the respect for human rights. The world has forgotten that the first bill of human rights was the Cyrus Cylinder. Very few people know about this. In fact, when I was at a Delhi University, what are these silly things called? Refresher course, many years ago at Jamia, in fact. And we were having something on law with lots of very, Rumi, I'm talking to you, very fancy lawyers over there. And I said, what about the Cyrus Cylinder as a Bill of Human Rights? And this very educated, famous judge said, what is that? It's a tiny little cylinder. It was buried as a foundational stone deep in the earth in Babylon, and this is 539 BC. And what does Cyrus say? He says, I respect all people, I respect all their religions, I will not convert. And I entered Babylon amongst jubilation because he freed the citizens from the yoke of servitude, which is why Cyrus is called the Lord's anointed, the only non Semite to be called the Lord's anointed in Isaiah. So I think this is something, the respect for even gender. In the Cyrus Cylinder, there is equality of gender, but in the Persepolis tablets, it is amazing in these tiny cuneiform tablets, you even have this, if a woman is pregnant, she gets 1.5 times the salary for building Persepolis because she's carrying another life within her. So I think this is something very important, and racial equality, which unfortunately after coming to India maybe have got influenced by other things. This is something very important, and I'm glad that the UN has taken 11 points from the Cyrus Cylinder in their charter. So these are things which I would like people to know. The last point, and then I'll shut up, please. I know I talk too much. I'm a teacher. But the last thing is that right now we are seeing the largest migration of refugees, and it is heartbreaking. We have seen it in Syria, we've seen it in Afghanistan, we've felt it with some of our students in India, and we are facing such a massive migration. I want to go back briefly into two parts of history. Everybody knows about the sugar in the milk and the Parsis came here and the Rana gave us, Jadi Rana gave us a bowl and we put sugar into it and we've sweetened the milk of your country, etc., etc. But we've got to remember an earlier refuge. Cyrus gave refuge to the Jews who have never been respected in any part of the world. And he not only gave them refuge, he rebuilt their temples. Darius finally completed the building because Cyrus was dead. So, refuge and refugees, when we are looking at people literally putting them in boats and refusing to, we all remember that little picture of the boy in the blue shorts who died on the shores of Lesbos in Greece. I mean, these things, we have to think that in history and today, refugees do contribute. We are one world. There was no on the Silk Route, on the Musk Route. Yesterday, I was listening to a talk from Cambridge, which was talking about Musk Route. On the Silk Route, on the Musk Route, on the maritime routes, you didn't need passports. There's this brilliant book which I would really recommend people to read. It is the First World War adventures of what Nariman? Nariman Karkaria. This is a 16-year-old boy who runs off from Navsari. Navsari is a great place. I love Navsari. Nicest food you can get, by the way, Parsi food. So he runs off at 16. Parents are frantic, changes his name, goes on a ship to Hong Kong, from there to China, from there to Japan, then crosses the whole of Europe, joins the World War, fights at the Somme, fights later on in the desert, and comes back to Navsari and then goes off to Iran again. So that spirit, that spirit of adventure, that sort of thing, and the contribution where you would travel across the whole of the top of Asia without a passport. It's like less than 100 years, about 100 years ago. I think these are things which we would love to see back. No passports, no boundaries, one human race. And thank you, Kumi, for bringing out these points over here. I have tried to give a slightly historical perspective to this whole thing. And I would like Mr. Venkat Narayan, please now to ask us questions, because we three Parsis will otherwise corner everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Sharma. Kumi, Gandhiji had famously said, the Parsis are such a small number, but their contribution has been fantastic. And after all, Ratan Tata made the House of Tatas a $100 billion company. More than 50% of it comes from overseas. And it is a matter of great concern that as an enterprising community, we do not consider Parsis refugees anymore. You've been here for more than 1,000 years. You are India.
Yeah, I don't think Parsis consider themselves refugees either.
No, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Very
So,
much part and parcel of Indian society, contributed in every way, whether it's business, art, science,
you name it.
and you name it, and they have done very well. In fact, as Shanaz pointed out, they are very good advertisement for why you should accept migrants, because migrants have a certain energy and a need to establish themselves in a new country.
That's right. So when the census says that there are barely 50,000 people, in 10 to 20 years from now, they might be down to 30,000, and it might be not a community, but a tribe.
Vanishing tribe.
Now, are you worried about this? A quarter century from now, will the Parsis become an extinct community in India? And 10% of women do not marry in your community. 10% of men do not marry in the community. And you still have problems. Like when your sister married outside, Roxana married Subramanian Swami, your mother was very upset.
My grandfather
Your
was
grandfather
most
was
upset.
They wouldn't talk to you at all. And then you also married outside your community. And I don't know, your children can go to the...
That is true. It's for Mr. Debu, in fact, to be able to tell us. But one of the reasons for the decline in Parsi population, the government has gone out of its way to help. Unnecessarily, I think, in some ways. For example, the Geo Parsi program. I think within this decade, we have got only about 500 births.
500 is a lot. When you
500
think we have 200 births normally. Yeah.
But the point is that, you know, it's for the Parsi community themselves has this ability to increase its population. What to do. I mean, what other religion says, don't come to us, you know. Rather, it tries to get rid of anyone who is married out from the community, any woman who is married out, they do not accept their children. And as according to a Parsiana article, at least 25% of Parsi women marry out.
More than that.
More than that.
Actually,
And
more
what
than that.
surprises me about this is that, you know, in most religions, such laws are made by the priesthood, which is very powerful. In Parsis, we know that is not the case. It's the laity which is powerful. It's the laity which controls the fire temple. But they have just sat back. Whereas, you know, it's the vocal minority which is so shrill and strident and goes on in bringing out publications and all, that is trying to keep us to these very old-fashioned tenets which are not practiced by Zoroastrians in any other part of the world.
But the basic point is not that I mean, there are many studies on this because the demographic studies we've done in Parkour are seminal. Over the last 20 years, what we have found is that it's not the marriage outside or marriage within. It's 30% unmarried Parsis. It's not 10% unmarried. It's 30% Parsis are unmarried.
Both men and women?
Both men and women. And sadly, a one-child norm or a no-child norm has been another problem. And our total TFR, total fertility ratio for a married couple, when 30% are already unmarried, not married, ever, our total fertility ratio is 0.88, which is why UNESCO came and asked me to start this project. So we've got to remember it is not just about a girl marrying out or a boy marrying out. It is definitely a total fertility ratio, which right now, can you believe China is giving free IVF now to everybody? And the whole West has recognized this. In India, we're recognizing it. As you become more and more advanced financially, and of course, as you become more and more liberated where the women are concerned, which I'm not saying anything is negative about, the fertility ratio does drop because you marry later. And a biological clock is ticking away within all of us.
But also, Shana, this isn't that the 30% non-married, the social norms that you can't marry
I don't
outside.
know. No, I
There's so
don't
much
think so.
pressure to marry within the community. There's so much pressure to marry.
I think the generational changes have happened, and today the Delhi
There is
Anjuman,
definitely generation change, maybe in Delhi, but I think
No, Delhi,
outside,
Jamshedpur,
Bombay, etc.
yeah.
It is still the one major reason for not.
For Orthodox people, the Parsis marriage outside is forbidden. Even Ratan Tata was in love with an American person, and she has also written that Justice Kanga,
Kanga.
Justice Kanga was also barred to marry outside. So he was totally unmarried for the life. Once I had written, even for those who are married, once I had written that Tata produced lakhs of tons iron bar, but could not produce a single child. Like, it's same with all the industrialists. Most of the industrialists are childless. Why? The fertility problem is also there. So government to encourage to child that once introduced Geo Parsi scheme. In scheme, she was yeah.
But sir,
Right?
I want to, like you said, marriage outside is forbidden, but you have changed the customs for cremation. Earlier you were doing it. I'm from Bombay, and I have a lot of Parsi friends in school and otherwise. So you have changed the custom. because there are no vultures available or birds of prey. In Bombay, also Tower of Silence is there, but many get themselves cremated. So you can also modify it. I don't know. I'm talking about the clergy. That marriage outside should not be forbidden. You will change this custom.
The religion does anybody, if you want to become a Zoroastrian, you're welcome. But it is a legal thing which happened in 1908 in India. That is what Mr. Debu was talking about. There are no cases right now in the High Court of Calcutta.
Supreme Court.
Cremation is allowed.
That is not to say that whether you are a Parsi or not. That is to say whether you
Zoroastrian, whether you can use the funeral rites of them or you can enter a fire temple. But that does not prevent people saying that I'm a Parsi. I married somebody else, but so what? My children are Parsis.
Stopping any Parsi from entering a fire temple wherever you married. Nobody's stopping anybody.
No, but say if it was a woman who had married outside, in an orthodox place like Bombay, technically you would not be allowed. No, but I think people do now.
My hubby, she is married a non-Parsi, and she cannot take her children inside the fire temple. But she but she's taking money anyway because she respects her. But I have a question.
Bags, they are not allowed. They are.
it's changing, but very slowly. It's very slowly.
Yeah. Just Kapoor.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks to your article on Dadi Balsara, I was able to. But my question is, what is it about Parsis which makes them so unique and lovable? You may say you fight amongst yourself, but you're a unique and excellent community for the public at large. What is that DNA you have?
I just had one comment for Shanaz because my grandmother passed away. Passed away, I think 20 years ago. Certainly, all her grandchildren who were all, as she said, half caste, none of us had had a navjot. We sat outside while my grandmother's last rites were done, and we weren't allowed to go up with the body. And it was actually a very traumatic episode for anybody who would, a young child who's making a decision as to which community do they want to belong to their fathers or their mothers, but something like that, which would not happen to me in my Ravi community. Actually, it was very traumatic.
It would be, obviously. And thank God things have changed. In the last few years, a lot of our own family, people who've been married out or married wherever, they were all allowed into not only the Bangli, but right up in Bombay. I'm talking about Bombay. Delhi, of course, has no such rules. And please remember, it is the trust which makes the rules. It is not the religion, as I keep on emphasizing, is open to all. Now, if a trust has a certain problem and it's a legal issue, then you are a lawyer, so you know how it's difficult to do that. I fully understand it is traumatic. It has traumatized a whole generation like yours. It has been very traumatic, and which is why we have made all the attempts across the world, particularly right now, Fezana in America is doing a very good job. That's across the North Americas, Australia, Delhi, Jamshedpur, Madras. A lot of people have realized this. But the whole point is that if you really, we think that everybody will want to jump in and become a Parsi. I know of many cases also where because if you are Navjoti, then you cannot follow the Hindu undivided family rules again. So a lot of people, and that I get troubled by it, that if you want your children to be part of a community, then go into
it wholeheartedly. I have seen cases in Delhi where the girl child has a navjot, pretty dress, nice frock, presents, nice dinner, nice everything.
But the boy, no, because he's going to be the an easy issue. It is not an easy issue at all. It should be a choice, definitely.
Definitely, but the child is a child. See, actually, you can have a navjot till any age. There's no sort of restriction on it. You are supposed to, according to a certain prayer called the Kasi Bastan prayer, finish it before you're 16. Finish your navjot. But there have been navjots, as Kumi has pointed out, of in the Variyas. In the Variyas, a famous story. And ironically, as she's also pointed and your married Parsis. So I mean, these are things that have happened.
One is the panel should allow the audience also to talk. The panel's talking too much. The audience also has some opinion. Number one. Number two, I haven't read your book, ma'am, but I haven't read your book, ma'am. I would love to read it. But I think Sir Babaji Naraji was the first Lord by the British, right? So number two, I mean, I was trying to research history. I know research as well. Okay. So please allow me, I'm still young by Parsi standards. Okay, so second, what I had was, if you look at the history, the Parsis were the first people who went into industrialization. Okay, it's not the case shipbuilding and so on and so forth, but if you look at Bombay and you go out there, you'll see that they were the first people to get into industrialized. You must bring it out. Three, it seems Asian coming part
I have
okay, I'm not ready. One way chapter lieutenant coming in a tank running his regiment. Can you imagine that? Because I'm sick. I understand what that means. Okay? One thing, of course, is I love the Queen. Freddie Mercury was used to be a lot of Freddie Mercury, you know? You should
But one second about Freddie Mercury. You don't acknowledge the fact.
That's what I'm saying. The panel should say, listen here.
Okay.
Okay.
So, whatever next book you write, please do write about the cultural aspects and how they have contributed to this community, to our country, to really. Sorry, if you. I think one of the things while growing up in Pune, for anybody in the audience, if you grew up in Bombay, Pune, there are so many iconic places, the Parsi Gym, the Towers of Silence, Dastur School in Pune. So we all had a close bunch of friends, and we would go to Danu with had the Chiku Estates. So there was a very visible community, and all of us got this engagement with them. And I think Sharnaz really explained beautifully. I think it's that osmosis of of the community belief systems, which is what makes them great, as the gentleman from Bombay mentioned. My question is, you spend time in Delhi. I think Sharnaz, you've been here long enough. Give us a flavor of Parsi living in Delhi. Which are the places? I mean, I've spent quite a few years. I don't know if a civilizations or where is your temple. Just both of you, if you could just give us an insight about Parsi life in Delhi. We have no idea.
Times have changed and people are now, but it's not Delhi Parsis were always very liberal, and there was a gentleman in the beginning who was
Nargolwala, Charvat Nargolwala, who ensured that anyone, even if you marry a non-Parsi, you're welcome into the association. Something that will not happen, and it's a small community which keeps together, but they're not a large number of the population in Delhi is small. It's also there are a large number of them in transferable jobs. So I don't think that bond is there. In Bombay, why population is much larger, so is it in Pune. But another thing which has indirectly, I think, helped the Parsis stay together is the Parsi housing system. These subsidized the bags. Because if you're living in the same area with people, then perhaps you reinforce thinking about certain conservative lines and don't move with the times. If the bugs, there's a lot of good things about the bugs, and I think there are a lot of bad things. Shahaz will
situation. But another place which you should visit is our Aramga. We have a beautiful Aramga. In fact, the Delhi Heritage Tours do take people there. Aramga is a place of rest, our burial ground, which finally we'll all end up on Prithviraj Road. So that's a nice thing to. Oh, yeah. So that's a beautiful place to visit.
I had a
Sorry,
small-
Dadi's been a bit.
One more thing is this, that we had learnt a lot from when Everlasting Flame was brought to Delhi. You were the pioneer in that. And we came to know a lot about the Parsi culture. But I wonder one thing, two questions remain unanswered from the Everlasting Flame. The Parsis are said to be ethical in their enterprise and business. No doubt about it. But
No, I would say generally, I had talked to many people,
Kumi,
non-Parsis, and
Kumi,
they
let
said
me
yes,
complete.
they are cut above.
Kumi, let me complete. The question is, I wonder that during the British Raj, the Parsis were involved in the trade of opium with China.
Yes.
So how was it ethical business? Number two.
Yes.
Number two, second question is that Parsis you said that Parsis is the oldest monotheistic religion, much earlier than the Christianity or Islam. What about the Vedic? Vedas and Avestas were quite related, and Vedas talked about one God.
The Rigvedic Trishub mantra and the Gathik Avastan mantra, the meter is almost the same. There's a lot of similarity. But the monotheism of only one God, which then has remained in the Parsi community, is
also. In Vedas, it is one God, that is Parmeshwar. And in Parsi community, you have Antiminus and Spentaminus.
those are mentalities. We won't go into that discussion over here.
Short comment to make. I'm sorry. I have a short comment, please. I have a short comment to make. You mentioned how in India the Parsis are under the radar. Were perceived to be under the radar at one point of time. But then further research, as the gentleman said, that there's so many similarities because of the nature of Indo-European culture. And one of Darius's proclamations is in the Avestan is perfectly legible to the Sanskrit speaker. So it's Atam Darashyo, Kashayatam Vasarka, Kashayatya, Kashayatanam, Kashayatya Parsai, Kashayata Dhayanum Vistapaya Pucha, Ara Sama Napa Haksha Manishya, which is that I'm Darius. So if we stop anglicizing the names, maybe that then the linguistics can become more legible to and bring more of the nation understanding that Parsis were never really refugees. We just migrated at different times from Bactria or Transoxiana.
No,
And-
that is not historically correct actually, because we did come after a certain period of a vast world's biggest ancient empire, we did finally become refugees. So that is, and we did come to India because we had trade with India.
But
We had
it
trade
is,
with
I think, also true that Sanskrit and Avesta
Avesta
are
very-
parallel languages. So,
Karthik
some
Avesta, yeah,
point in
yeah.
time in history, there was some parallel tribes with
Because Zarathustra in the Sanskrit, it's Vitamin, is Zarathustra
Yeah.
Shvetam.
Yes. In fact, Rohinton Nariman once, when he was bringing out his book, I've forgotten the name of the South Indian justice who was with him. He could read the Parsi, the Avestan prayers by no Sanskrit, because they are basically parallel languages. So,
I mean, it's
so
my
there
name-
was obviously a connection long ago. There was no question. But about the opium thing, that opium thing is made much about, and I want to say that something that is politically incorrect at one point may not be at another time. So, like arms deal is today taken by many people, they are as ethical, which would not now, as slowly there's becoming a question about it. So, at the time of the opium trade, it was it was an accepted form of a commodity like tea, cotton, etc. I mean, people were not thinking deep about opium. And the one thing that people, when they want to snide about Parsis, have the habit of saying that the Tatas are founded on opium trade. That is wrong. Because though Jamshedji Tata's father was in China trade, he lost all his money in the cotton crash. So he made it again with getting a from the, what is it called? He got a contract from the British for some to Abyssinia to give supplies. And the other thing that the Parsis are accused of is that they got ahead in life because they were babies of the British. They were to some extent in 1857 when the uprising took place. The Bombay Parsi Panchayat, I'm ashamed to say, did hold a congratulatory meeting for them. But that was some. There were always Parsis who fought on the side for freedom and were at the forefront. And they were in the extreme wing also. So
I have a quick question for Kersi. Mr. Kersi, Mr. Kersi, I have a quick question for you about the two judgments which you are awaiting in the courts, in the apex court here. I mean, could you explain how it is a hurdle for some of the a better liberal interpretation of the Parsis, and how it would help the Parsi community as such? Could you kindly explain those two judgments and why they are in the court?
Yeah, added to that, Parsi, what are the chances of the Supreme Court overturning the 1908 law?
There are lots of cases since last 115 years. First case was 1906. Still now, we have not decided a definition of Parsi and Zoroastrian. All are fighting who is Parsi, who is Zoroastrian. One lady from Calcutta, Prochi Mehta, has written one book, who is a Parsi. So she has explained all this in her book. And she has approached her daughters are married outside, but their children are accepted in Zoroastrian religion as she has performed Naujot of their children also. So even after Naujot, the priests are refusing to enter them into fire temple. So she moved to court, and it is pending in local court in Kolkata. And another, Gulrukh Gupta, she was from Valsad. She married to Gupta, means a Hindu person. The Panchayat, Valsad Panchayat, passed one resolution that she may not enter the fire temple, or not even in funeral of her father. So she went to court. Say, how is it possible? I am born Zoroastrian. I have performed Navjot also. I am performing Zoroastrian religion also. It was a marriage under Special Marriage Act. So nothing doing. So she moved to Gujarat High Court. But unfortunately, Gujarat High Court uh, not given clear verdict. So she appealed in Supreme Court. Even in Supreme Court, the single bench judge did not judge anything and any judgment. Now they have moved to in larger bench, and at present it is in final stage. And Chandrachud, Chief Justice Chandrachud, is in bench judge, Supreme Court. Yeah. So the verdict will come within few months or few years. And
I'm a little skeptical whether the judgment will have any impact, because I've seen that the courts generally keep away from religious matters and take the easy way out of not giving. What do you think, Sharna? Do you think this will be a definite court? No idea.
no, but one thing one thing I am clearing. At present, there is no in census form. The census is going next this year also. So there is no separate column for Parsis or Zoroastrians. This is column for Hindu, Muslim, Jain, Sikh, etc. But there is no separate column for Parsis. So Parsis are insisting that it be in census form, and all are approaching me. But the question is there: now who is Parsi and who is Zoroastrian? So Orthodox lobby approached me, and then I did. What is the definition of Parsi and Zoroastrian? First to decide.
Okay. Right. Okay. Kumi. Yeah, please. All gets too serious, and everybody starts arguing. Something fun. I need to know, because knowing a bit of your family, both your grandparents, the most orthodox in Pune, theology, books, study of religion, and we all, as kids that time, thought you four siblings, three of them married all outside. Now, give us some of the fun things that happened then. Not all the serious stuff. What happened?
By the time I got married, my grandfather, who was a pillar of the Parsi Panchayat of Pune, had passed away. Yeah. And my grandfather from my maternal side was the priest, high priest. He had passed away when I was a kid. And I must say that, in fact, as I've mentioned in the book, actually, they were far more liberal. My great-great-great-grandfather was the one who approved of stood for that Bela Navjot to take place. And he got into trouble. They made, nasty limits against him. But he later on, and his trustees also disapproved of him. So he apologized. Then he went to London and he gave a speech, and he said, actually, there's nothing written in the Gathas that a person cannot.
Okay.
I'm a Parsi because I consider myself. I'm a Zoroastrian because I consider myself a Zoroastrian. I don't want, One is supposed to be a religion, and one is the community, the people who came from Iran.
Okay. Well, the opium point, when it
Just,
came up.
just to lighten the mood, I just wanted to ask about your, what do you think about the representation in Hindi cinema? Because we
It's the
always
Babaji representation.
because we
which is why
always
many
see
people
a Parsi character as
a
giving comic
figure of
relief in the
fun.
movie.
But you know, you
So,
see,
I mean,
I'm very glad you brought this
Because,
up.
like, do you object to that? Have you ever raised any objections, or you just take it with a pinch of salt?
We used to be able to take it with a pinch of salt, and it was an affectionate thing. But what Dadi has seen today is not something affectionate, and more of this is happening sadly on social media. There are some very nasty things happening on social media, which we don't want to exaggerate just now or talk too much about it. But the affectionate Babaji, which you used over here, and the whole they have lots of songs about Bombay Maruch hai, and Gujarati songs and things that had a repercussion in when we were growing up, because it was considered. I'm now being a little more serious about this. That the Babaji thing was fine, and the laughing and the drinking and all that was. The Christian was shown in one way, and we were shown in one way. In a happy intermingling of people in a cosmopolitan city, it didn't matter. Around a little later than my growing up, it began going into Parsi's opium trade. I'm just laughing about that. Parsi girls are all on drugs and Parsi girls are all loose. It began getting nastier and nastier. So that has upset the community, but we are too small. We have no political voice except Mr. Debu, and he has enough to deal with. So we have to just keep quiet about it. It's not a pleasant thing.
You know, one thing that has maybe what she says and has saved us is that we have the capacity to laugh at ourselves, the humor, and if that was not there, I am sure today it would be very different. Though many of the Parsis in Bombay also started deriding Adima Rizwan's plays, that you are typecasting, things like that. But the Gujaratis then took it over. But then it went into a different stream, as she says. But if that was not there, we would be seen very differently. And what is happening today, what you spoke about. Yeah.
Last 3 questions. Yes.
Well, actually, the opium trade, thing, when the Parsis were involved in it, it wasn't illegal at that point of time. So
it was illegal in China.
It was not illegal in British India.
Yeah, but in China it was.
So in British India, where the Parsis lived,
the British
and where they
encouraged
operated,
it and took part
wasn't
in it.
really illegal at all in that sense. So there was not something illegal or unethical that Parsis was specifically doing. So if we judge things that happened, say 150 years ago or 200 years ago, by standards of today, that is a problem. The second issue, the second intention, it's business. It's unethical if you cheat in business, but if you don't cheat in business, it's ethical. The second point, one may be a classical Marxist, which I'm not, but capital has to come from somewhere. Jamsetji Zizi Boy was an orphan. He made money in the opium trade, but then what did he do with the money? He started Sir J.J. School of Art. He paid the debts of every poor person, Parsi, Hindu, Muslim, whatever, in Bombay civil jail from 1870 onwards. I mean, what do you do with the money, right?
He started 150 charitable institutions, all the pioneering things, whether it is the JJ School of Arts, the hospital, the gynecology, even Mahim Causeway.
And it's just observations. And this thing about, toadies of the British, well, the point is, the late Novi Kapadia told me something very interesting. He said that the Parsis have always respected those who gave them refuge and protection. So that's probably why they got along with British too.
Also, perhaps a migrant small community feels insecure, so it goes along with whoever is in power.
I just want to add to all this. My name is.
I have one question.
Just one word. My name is Bhalla. and I went to Bombay as a after doing my studies, and I got a job in this thing, and I stayed on Pedder Road as a paying guest with a family called Dhallas. You know, they Dhallas or whatever. So I got refuge out there. So,
I have one question, if it is my turn, but after Madam. Please go ahead. Okay. Yeah, my question is, in the recent years, although the government of Iran is quite repressive, but they have been projecting uh, media image that they are very receptive and open to the Parsis coming to Iran and visiting their holy places, places of historical interest. So it's helping because I also saw some of the documentary or some recordings that Hormuz Sorabji has been taking groups. Is this still going on? And is it part of the Pazor Foundation initiative?
We
So
have.
is the Iranian government really opened up and welcoming to the Parsis, the Zoroastrians?
We work together for the Navroz nomination as an oral and intangible heritage of humanity. We work together for Asha, which is about environmental consciousness. We are working with the Zoroastrians in Iran during COVID also. The government did help us to get medicines from the Poonawallahs in special flights out to Iran. So yes, there is a growing at one level, I am not commenting on the political situation, but where the Zoroastrians are concerned, there is a realization the Iranians respect their history. So there is a definite attempt to help keep that history alive. So that's what I would like to say.
I would tend to disagree with Shana.
Yeah, they speak Farsi.
No, I would disagree with Shahnaz because the fact is that why did the Zoroastrians of Iran leave it? Because they were discriminated by the ruling. And even when I visited Iran and saw them, they even had to dress differently. They may have, maybe they were okay in Tehran, but out in Yazd, they were treated like what we would say is our scheduled caste. And slowly they have all migrated. There are a very small number left. But it is true that the Zoroastrians of India have made every effort to get them. And the Iran government is conscious of the fact that we are a powerful minority in India.
Um,
I agree, absolutely. Absolutely.
Number three, I want to talk about the diaspora, the future generation of Parsis. I mean, the positive aspect of social media is that you get to read Zoroastrian Times, you get to read Farzana, you get to know about Parsis abroad who are doing amazing things that you don't know about here. And really, one wants to hear more about that. Can we please talk about the positives and growth of our community, because I still believe it exists. I still believe it will go forward, and I still believe we'll be as successful as we are now.
Well, that's very good. Please join. I'm inviting all of you to look at, to go online. We are restarting our Return to Roots program, which is with Fezana, and applications are being invited right now. It's www.zororoots.org. He has left, but I would really encourage people, whoever is interested, please join us and come to see what we are trying to do for the future.
Last question, Munish.
Yeah, this is Munish. You talked about law. Law is coming in between and then it's hampering us in some manner. But what you yourself are doing, because it is saying God helps those who helps themselves. Are you ensuring that your children get married at an earlier stage and they have enough family with them? What you have been doing, see, is not that easy to depend on others. It is you do yourself.
Absolutely, that's
Whether
what I said.
whether law comes
It's
in
up
between
to the
you.
community to change.
Yeah.
Whole point of geoparcy to make people understand that it's our own fault of what is happening. We don't get married. We don't tell our kids. Of course, we are very independent, but we tell our kids, okay, bye bye. You look after yourself. So you will get married after you have finished your education, got a house, got a donkey, car, everything.
There should be more
There's no
family discussion
support.
on this subject.
There's no
Yes,
support.
and amongst the community.
I'm
Yeah.
so glad
Yeah.
you brought this point
All right.
out. This is something that I'm very glad you're seeing. Because when I've been working with you, Parsi, people are horrified that what are you all doing? I mean, my own son is 35, he's not married.
Making
This is
career
the problem.
never comes in a way.
This is the thing.
Because even if you are married at the age of 22, 25, I mean, you can still make your career. So that is to be taught to the family. Yeah, all right.
Yeah. Bapi Sidhwa, yes.
Our very own Keki Daruwala. And do we call them Parsi writers?
Yeah.
Do we call them Indian writers? What outstanding works of literature.
Absolutely. Maybe we should have one more session. She'll be happy to autograph copies sold here. In the meanwhile, I want to thank Uniform Civil Code. Yeah, I want to know, Kumi and Sharnaz, Uniform Civil Code. Will that make any difference?
Yeah, it will, but they should have been done long ago because the Parsis have a separate.
Yeah, because डेढ़ घंटा चला. Anyway, thank you very much. Yes. Kumi?
Yeah.
Here it is. It is a small gift for you.
Thank you so much for
Can
that.
see.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. This is for you. Sharnaz?